Hello everyone, we are from Group 6 and today we will talk about the concept of face between Western cultures and Asian cultures. Culture gives humans their identity. It is a total communication framework for words, actions, body language, gestures, intonation, and facial expressions. Usually, the word face refers to one of the human body parts. However, face also can refer to the value or standing a person has in the eyes of others. This standing can be source of the person's sense of personal pride or self-respect. As stated by Novinger, in many cultures, maintaining face is of great importance, and one must take great care in disagreeing, criticizing, and competing. Face is a concept that is intuitively meaningful to people, but one that is difficult to define precisely. It is concerned with people's sense of worth, dignity, and is associated with issues such as respect, honor, status, reputation, and competence. Many cultures believe about this concept. For example, Mexico has two faces. One has an element of sadness which is stylized in songs and art forms. The other is the sunny, smiling face that celebrates Mexicans well known of art, singing, dancing, poetry, humor, and lively conversations. The famous Japanese proverbs also wrote that the Japanese say you have three faces. The first face, you show it to the world. The second face, you show it to your close friends and family. And the last face, you never show it to anyone. In society, there are two kinds of face. There are face threatening and giving face. For example, if we are ordered to do something that we feel below us or we feel devalued in some way, then we may perceive the order to be face threatening. On the other hand, on a different occasion, we may feel pleased or even honored if someone asks us for help. It shows trust in our abilities or acceptance as a close friend. In this case, the request can give us face.
I'm going to talk about the significance of face or face effects. So, loss of face usually associated with the perception by others that has not always comprehended or acknowledged the structure or the hierarchy of the groups. So, loss of face usually happen when we do not receive the respect that we would like to, or when people criticize us or boss us around, or maybe when they insult us or call us by our names. And when they do, we typically feel like embraced or uncomfortable. So in similar, if someone speaks to us in a way that is too personal of our liking, we may feel she or he is treating our rights, and in all these cases, we are likely to feel annoyed or irritated, but we do not necessarily feel a loss of face. But however, when people's treatment may go a step further and make us feel as though we have lost our credibility or have been personally devalued in some way. When this happens, our face has been threatened and we talk of loss of face. So, for example, when the teacher is teaching in the front of the classroom and a student come and shout to her in front of all other students, the student probably was focusing on her own interactional goals, but however, her comments or the student's comments were very threatening to the teacher's face. They challenged the teacher's sense of competence as a teacher and making her doubt her ability to teach well, and thus making her lose face in relation to the attributes of competence. At the same time, the fact that the student challenged her in public can also be seen as the threat both to her societal rights and to her face.
Face is closely related to a person's sense of identity or self-concept, which are self as an individual, self as a group member, and self in relationship with others. Individualists usually use direct speech for this efficient because it is concise, evident, and unequivocal. However, it commits the speaker to what is said, which could easily cause people to lose face. Individualists favor direct communication, partly because they can assert control over their relationships. Direct messages employ low-context communication, which is communication where the meaning is explicitly stated. Besides wanting control, individualists directly communicate to establish two-way communication. Even it means superiors evolving, subordinates in decision making. Americans or individualists prefer two-way communication because they often face complex, open-ended situations requiring participative input. Accordingly, individualists believe it is a loss of face when they are not consulted in decision making. Being consulted assures individualists that their opinion matters as unique individuals. This is partly because individualists promote their own welfare over the interests of their group, try to stand out, and tend to use self-honoring phrase words.
Collectivistic cultures, the self is interdependent, which means that people feel linked to others in their primary group. Collectivists must maintain connection and adjust their comportment to conform and be accepted by others. Otherwise, they risk losing face. Consequently, they prefer to use indirect communication. In China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and other Eastern countries, people communicated less directly. Collectivists need to uphold faith is so important that they will risk being misunderstood for the sake of maintaining faith. To uphold faith, collectivists also place a greater emphasis on preserving harmonious interpersonal relations. If I see my primary identification as a group member, my considerations about faith will involve my group. So I avoid criticism and I conceal when I feel disappointed, even though it may come out in a more dangerous way later on. And when there is conflict that cannot be avoided, I prefer third parties as a shuttle to resolve the conflict. And since no direct confrontation takes place, faith is preserved and potential damage to the relationship or network is minimized. In general, collectivists base their identity on the social system, like family, friends, colleagues. So consequently, they emphasize more on conformity, empathy, and dependence, which acts to smooth the social situation and allow people to blend into the group. So if something face-threatening occurs, individualists are likely to need to consult and to confront and address the problem. Meanwhile, for the collectivists, they are likely to need to ease the situation and create a harmonious, non-confrontational atmosphere.
Every individual family is from Chinese background. They will say, okay, respect your parents, never say no to your boss. Never say no, never criticize or debate publicly with any seniors or within your team. Say no to a boss. That's losing face. Losing face is a very bad thing in Asian cultures. Chinese cultures say, you're losing face for family. You are losing face. You make the whole relationship getting worse. So face value is very important in Asian cultures.
It's not appropriate for a junior person to shame a senior person, and that could be in the way that you speak, so respectful language, but it could also be confrontation, which might not be very pleasant, or it could be in a decision, so disagreeing with a decision or a view taken by a more senior person. So it's really important, if there's an age difference or if there's a power dynamic difference before going into a public meeting room, that if the issues aren't resolved before going in, then a more junior person really has to be subservient to the senior person in that meeting, which is not too different to Australia in a certain degree, but in Australia it's more about roles, seniority of roles within a corporation, whereas in Japan it's actually about physical age.
If you make them look good in front of important people, like the boss or parents, of course they will love you a lot. And yeah, they will help you when you need that. And it's also the thing that what they teach us in the way of acting, they call what the life skill, to act, tell good about people in front of important people and do not say bad about them, so that you can get benefit from that.